time together. Party time together. Hello everyone, good morning, welcome to here. Welcome. Come in, hurry in. Yeah, we're going to talk about something today. Today I'm going to show you how we can use the intervals in our major scales to play chord progressions anywhere on the fretboard. Yeah, have you ever been playing a progression up here in open position, but you thought, hey, I would like to play that down here perhaps. Maybe, can I do that? But you don't know how. That's okay, that's what I'm gonna show you. And so I made a video about how to use intervals to play any riff across the fretboard. And so this is the chord progression version. All right, and I'll link the original one down below. Okay, so how do major scales help us with chord progressions? Major scales have nothing to even do with chords. It's just stupid. Well, it's not stupid, and it does have everything to do with chord progressions. Listen. So here on the screen are our 5 major scale shapes. And they're intervals. Right? Look, right there. And now the thing, let me put my guitar down, about these intervals, okay, in these scales, is they are not just notes. They directly correspond to the numbered chords we want to play. So for example, let's say we want to play a C major, D minor, F major, and G major chord progression, right? We are not going to see those chords as their chord type, okay? We're only going to look at them as their numbered versions. All right, and so that progression will be a 1, 2, 4, 5 chord progression. Since those are their respective orders in the C major scale, and I'll leave a video where I talk about that specifically down below. And so great, how does the numbered chords correspond to the numbers in our scales? Well, let's focus on one scale at a time, right? So let's pick the E shape, and we'll apply it to the key of C major, and that's gonna be played right here. Totally. I think when we all get to heaven, we should all organize a roast for Jesus. Yeah, I think he'd like that. Yeah, I do. I think so. That's so great. These intervals are scale degrees, right? These numbers within our chord here are going to be our beacons, if you will. Where is it over here? They're probably over here, yeah. And whichever numbered chord we want to play is going to be built around its corresponding interval within this scale here. For example, the first chord we want to play is the 1 chord. So we'll look at our scale here, find a first degree, and we find one right here. And so great, we're going to build our chord around this note here. But which chord, right? Which one? Which chord shape am I going to plug in? Well, the 1 chord in a major key is a major chord, right? So we'll have to plug in the major chord shape whose chord identifier is on the 6th string here, and that would be the E shape. Totally. And just like that, we've successfully applied our 1 chord within this E-shaped major scale here. And I'll also link a video down below where I talk about how to plug in specific chord shapes around any single note. You know? And so great, so this same logic applies for the rest of our chord progression. So the next chord we want to play is the 2 chord. So we're just going to find a 2 in our shape here, and we find one right here. And since the 2 chord is a minor chord, we're going to plug in the minor chord shape whose chord identifier is on the 6th string, and that would be the E-shaped minor chord. Totally. And next we want to play our 4 chord. So we'll find a 4 degree, right? A 4th interval, we found right here. And since the 4 chord is played as a major, we're going to plug in the major chord shape whose chord identifier is on this 5th string here, and that would be the A shape. Totally. Then we want to play our 5 chord, find a 5th interval, we find one right there. Plug in the same shape as the 4, because it has to be a major chord. Totally. And then we go right back to our 1st chord. So let's play those together. Yeah. Let me tell you a little story about a little rabbit. His name was Rabbit. He had rabies and cold. And that same logic applies for every other major scale shape, okay? So let's do another one. Let's do the A shape. And so we'll apply that A shape major scale to the key of C major, and that would be right here. Totally. We're going to locate a 1st degree, so we have it right here. Yeah. Plug in the major chord shape that has its chord identifier on the 5th string here. So it's the A shape major chord. Then we have to find a 2nd degree, and we find it right here. Plug in the minor chord shape whose chord identifier is on that 5th string. That would be the A-shaped minor chord. Find a 4th degree, and we find one right here. Yeah, right there. And so when you have an interval on this 4th string here that you want to plug in a chord around, just remember that its octave is always going to be 2 frets down on the 6th string, right? So these 2 notes here are octaves. So if you see a note who you want to play a chord around here, you could just wormhole it. I call it a wormhole to its octave note up here. And then you could plug in the major chord shape whose chord identifier is on the 6th string, which is the classic E shape. Yeah. And then we have to find a 5th degree in this scale shape, and we find one right here. Plug in that same chord shape. Ta-da! And then back to our 1 chord. And so altogether, that sounds like this. Pumpkin, pumpkin with the cold. Got it from the pumpkin with the mole. He took it home, put it in a bowl. Found a draw and made a stove. Yeah. And listen, and this method works so well because it works across all keys, okay? You never have to think about specific chords. As long as you're thinking about the numbers, matching the number of the chord to the number in our scale shapes, right? You could transpose that exact same progression or any progression across any key. So we're gonna do that same progression, 1, 2, 4, 5, this time in the key of D major instead. And so here's that same progression using the E shape major scale. And so you see the relationship between these chord positions remain exactly the same, regardless if we did it in the key of C major or D major. You saw that? And so all you really need to drill is where the intervals are in your scale shapes, at least just 1 or 2 of the scale shapes. That, you know, that's good to start. And learn how to plug in the appropriate chord shapes around those intervals. And that's all. That's it. Okay, that's it. Easy peasy. Yeah. And then you're good to go, you know? Oh, I'm here now because I fell. Yeah, I fell off. And so that's all, okay? That's it. Don't forget to go to meganchurchmusic.com, sign our petition to send pigeons to space. And also while you're there, don't forget to check out the 70 Zen Guitar eBooks. We got 2 of them. And the 70 Zen Guitar Stud eBook will especially help you because it has all of their chord shapes all organized in the cage system. And it tells you exactly which string each cage shape plays on. You know, it's all organized very nice, so you should probably look at that. Yeah, and it's got the major scale shapes with all the intervals in them. Yeah, so it's just one-stop shop, you know? And we also got the 70 Zen Beginner Guitar Guide. That's gonna help you in your beginner journey, okay? Yeah, if you're a beginner and you want to, you know, have a more structured knowledge of what you're supposed to learn, everything is all in there that you need to know, all in order. And it's got a practice schedule to implement all of the things. Totally. And we also got a course, Keep Music Theory World Tour course. It's a course. What keys are, how we build major scales, how we build chords from those scales, and all that, okay? Listen, here's the thing. I need to tell you something. I need to tell you a story. Once upon a time. Does anyone else do this? Look, you remember this where you just lift your arm up? Like that, and you just leave it there. Does anyone do that anymore? Did that go away in the software updates somewhere? Why do people do this anymore? I think we should do it all the time. And it's quite nice if you do it with a cane in your hand too. I like that also. Totally. Look at me. I'm a Kung Fu Ninja Panda Man. That reminds me of a story about a Kung Fu Ninja Panda Man. His name was Coco. Coco was a Kung Fu Ninja Panda Man. But he was very little. All the other pandas made fun of him. They told him, you're never going to be a Kung Fu Ninja Panda Man Supreme because you're too little. And turns out they were right. They were right. Apparently there's qualifications, and you have to be around 6 feet tall or something like that. 6 feet tall, 300 pounds, heavyweight. And he didn't even make he didn't even make the littler one either. And also turns out he wasn't very good at Kung Fu Ninja Panding either. No, he wasn't very good. He would slip all the time whenever he would try to go up and just kick. Yeah, and that's not really very indicative of a Kung Fu Panda Man. Nope, it's not. So. Okay, Charles.